My dear child, someone cried your name at 3 in the morning last night, and Archangel Michael heard the frequency before the tears hit the pillow. Do not scroll past this. What I am about to tell you is not about love in the way the world discusses it. This is about a frequency, your frequency, that was matched to another human being before either of you took your first breath. And last night, in the smallest hours of the dark, that other person was struck by something they could not name. A longing so deep it bypassed their logic and escaped through their mouth as a sound that carried your exact vibration across a distance they do not even know exists. They do not know your name yet, but their spirit spoke it. You felt something last night too, maybe not at 3, maybe at a different hour, but something moved through you. A pang, a wave, a brief and unexplainable ache that settled over your chest without cause or context. You dismissed it as loneliness, as another night of carrying the weight of being unmatched in a world full of people who seem to find each other effortlessly while you remain unclaimed. That was not loneliness, that was resonance. Two tuning forks made from the same frequency do not need to see each other to respond. When one is struck, the vibration travels through walls, through distance, through every obstacle between them, and the matching fork begins to hum, not because it chose to, because it was made to. And what you felt last night was the hum of a fork that was struck by someone who does not yet know your face, but already carries your frequency in the marrow of their longing. They are real, they are alive, and they are closer than the distance has been telling you. Stay here. What I reveal next is who struck the fork, and why Michael was the one who heard it. Type resonance if you felt something unexplainable move through you recently, and you now believe it was not loneliness, but the vibration of someone whose frequency matches yours, calling out in the dark. Before we go any further, I need to tell you something that genuinely surprised me. A neuroscientist discovered a simple 7-second technique that actually rewires how your brain processes thoughts. And when I tried it, the difference was almost unsettling. My focus sharpened, ideas started connecting faster, and that mental fog, gone. This isn't manifestation nonsense. It's backed by real brain science, and thousands of people are already seeing results. But here's the catch, only 5 spots are left. If something inside you is saying, try it, trust that instinct. Click the link in the description or pinned comment before it's too late. The vibration that traveled between you and this person last night was not the first time it happened. It was the first time it was strong enough for heaven to register it as imminent. My beloved child, the resonance between your two frequencies has been active for longer than you realize. Small hums, faint vibrations, moments where your chest ached for no reason and your mind drifted toward a person you have never met with a specificity that startled you. You pictured a presence beside you. Not a face, a feeling. The feeling of being known by someone whose knowing does not require explanation. Those moments were not imagination. They were vibrations crossing the distance. But they were faint. Too faint for heaven's registry to classify as imminent. Too subtle for Michael to be deployed. Too quiet for the system that monitors matching frequency to issue a proximity alert. Until last night, what happened at 3 in the morning was not a subtle hum. It was a strike, a full, desperate, soul-deep impact on a tuning fork that sent a wave so powerful across the spiritual realm that Michael stopped mid-assignment and turned his head. He heard your frequency respond before you consciously felt it. I need you to understand why this message exists and why it found you today. Heaven operates a frequency monitoring system for matched pairs, tuning forks that were crafted together, separated by distance, and placed into different lives to develop individually before being brought into proximity. When the resonance between two matched forks crosses a specific threshold, the system flags it. Last night your pair crossed that threshold. This is not a general love message for lonely people. This is a specific frequency alert for one person whose matched fork just produced a vibration that heaven classified as ready. You are that person, and the fork that struck last night belongs to someone who is feeling right now, at this very moment, the same unexplainable pull that you are feeling. They do not know why, but their chest is humming with a frequency that only your proximity will resolve. What I reveal next is why the distance lasted this long, and what it was protecting both of you from. Type imminent if something inside you just confirmed that the longing you have been carrying is not one-sided, and heaven just registered that the person made for you is closer than they have ever been. I have been watching both tuning forks since the moment I forged them from the same frequency, my dear one. Before you were born, before the life that shaped you began applying its pressures and producing its particular tone, I held the raw material of your frequency in my hands and split it into two, not randomly. With the precision of a craftsman who knows that two forks made from identical material will always find each other through vibration, no matter how far apart they are placed. I shaped one half into you, and I shaped the other half into someone you have not yet met, but have been feeling for longer than your conscious mind has been tracking. You were never a single fork searching for a match. You were always one half of a pair. I watched you grow into your frequency. Every experience you walked through, every heartbreak, every disappointment, every moment of loneliness that pressed against you like silence in an empty room. Each one was tuning you, refining the pitch, adjusting the resonance, ensuring that when the vibration finally crossed the distance between you and your match, the frequency would be exact. Not approximate, not close enough, exact. Your pain was not pointless. It was pitch correction. And I have been watching the other fork with equal attention, tuning them through their own fire, shaping their frequency through their own loneliness, their own heartbreak, their own nights of wondering if the person they ache for actually exists somewhere on the earth, or only in the imagination of a heart that refuses to stop hoping. They have been wondering about you, my child, the same way you have been wondering about them. I chose you for this message because the two forks are now vibrating at frequencies so close to alignment that the remaining distance between you is measured in divine adjustments rather than human years. The tuning is almost complete. The proximity is almost sufficient. And the God who split the frequency is the one who will bring the two halves close enough to sound together. What I reveal next is what your loneliness has actually been doing to your frequency, and why it was essential. Type two halves if you just felt the truth settle into your chest, that you were never a whole fork looking for another whole fork. You are one half of a frequency that was split by God's own hands, and the other half has been aching for you with equal intensity. I know what the loneliness has been doing to you in the hours nobody witnesses, my beloved child. Not the public loneliness, the kind people can see and respond to with invitations and company and well-meaning advice about putting yourself out there. The other kind, the deep, cellular, frequency-level loneliness of a tuning fork that was designed to resonate with a match and has been vibrating alone in a room where no corresponding sound comes back. That loneliness lives in a place that company cannot reach. I saw you at the gathering where you were surrounded by people who love you, genuinely love you, and you still felt the absence. Not their absence, the absence. The specific, shaped, person-sized absence that sits beside you in every room, regardless of how many bodies fill it. You laughed at the right moments. You engaged at the right depth. And when you drove home, the silence in the car was louder than any conversation you had that night, because the silence carried the frequency of the one voice that was not there. You have been performing connection while starving for resonance. I watched the night you almost told someone about it. The words were forming, this specific confession about how alone you feel even when you are not alone. But you stopped, because the last time you tried to explain this kind of loneliness, the person responded with advice that proved they did not understand the difference between being single and being unmatched. Being single is a status. Being unmatched is a frequency condition, and no amount of dating advice or self-improvement strategies can resolve a vibration that was designed to be completed by another fork. You are not lonely because something is wrong with you. You are lonely because something is missing from you. Not a flaw, a fork. A frequency that was split at creation and placed at a distance that your current life has not yet closed. The ache you carry is not dysfunction. It is design. The built-in signal of a tuning fork that knows it was made to sound alongside another and has been producing half a sound in a world that keeps telling it the half should be enough. The half was never supposed to be enough. And I never designed you to pretend it was. The cruelest part has been the almosts, my dear child, and I watched every single one of them nearly break you. You have been close before, close enough to feel the hum intensify, close enough to think this might be the one, close enough that your frequency leaned forward with an anticipation so vulnerable that the withdrawal afterward left you vibrating at a pitch that felt more like damage than loneliness. The almosts hurt worse than the absence, because absence is a constant ache you learn to carry, but an almost is a spike, a sudden surge of resonance that mimics the real thing closely enough to convince your heart to open and then dissolves before the sound completes. You have opened and closed so many times that the hinges are worn. I saw the one that almost matched. The person whose frequency was close enough to create a temporary resonance that made your chest feel full for the first time in years. You leaned into it. You built around it. You allowed yourself to believe that the vibration was the one you had been waiting for. And when it faded, when the frequencies proved to be similar but not identical, compatible but not matched, the silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It was the silence of a tuning fork that almost heard its own sound reflected back. And almost is the cruelest distance of all. I watched you build the wall after that one. Not a dramatic wall, a frequency wall. You lowered your resonance deliberately. You dampened the vibration that makes you detectable to your match, because being detectable meant being vulnerable, and being vulnerable had produced nothing but almost that left you more depleted than the loneliness they temporarily replaced. You muted yourself to survive the disappointment, and I let you, because the dampening was necessary to protect you during a season when the real match was not yet close enough for the resonance to be safe. But my beloved child, the dampening that protected you then is now preventing the real vibration from reaching you. And the fork that cried your name last night was sending a signal that your muted frequency almost did not receive. Type unmute if you have been dampening your own frequency to protect yourself from another almost, and you are ready to let God restore the full resonance that your match needs to find you. The almosts were not failures, my dear one. They were calibrations that ensured your frequency would recognize the real match when it arrived. I need to reframe what those experiences actually did inside your tuning fork. Every almost that came close but did not complete the resonance, taught your frequency something essential. It taught you what almost sounds like, so that when the real sound arrives, you will not confuse it with another approximation. Your fork has been educated by near misses, and an educated fork does not waste its full resonance on a frequency that is close but not exact. The almosts sharpened your ability to detect the genuine. The person who has never experienced an almost cannot distinguish between a compatible frequency and a matched one. They hear something that hums and they assume it is theirs. But you have been through enough almosts to know the difference between a sound that temporarily fills the silence and a sound that permanently completes it. That knowledge was not available at a cheaper price. It required the exact heartbreaks you walked through. Your heartbreak produced discernment that will protect your destiny. And the wall you built, the dampening you applied to your own frequency, that was not rebellion against my plan. It was self-preservation during a season when the real match was still being tuned at a distance. If your frequency had remained at full volume during the almosts, the repeated surges and withdrawals would have damaged the fork itself. The dampening protected the instrument, and a protected instrument produces a cleaner sound when it is finally time to resonate at full capacity. I authorized the wall because I was protecting the fork for the real match. But the season of dampening has served its purpose. The almosts are behind you. The calibration is complete. Your fork can now distinguish between similar and same with a precision that only pain could have produced. And the frequency that cried your name last night was not similar. It was same, exact, identical to yours in every harmonic layer. The almosts led you here, and here is where the real sound begins. Something is happening to your frequency right now, my beloved child, and it started before you pressed play on this message. Over the last several days, you have been experiencing something you could not explain. A warmth in your chest that is not anxiety, a pull in a direction you cannot identify, a sudden tenderness toward the idea of love that surprised you because you thought you had successfully sealed that door. You dismissed it as emotional fluctuation, as hormones, as the random cruelty of a heart that refuses to stop hoping despite being given every reason to quit. It was not random. It was your fork beginning to vibrate in response to a signal. The frequency that was struck at 3 in the morning did not only travel toward heaven, it traveled toward you simultaneously. And your fork, dampened as it was, muted as you made it, protected behind walls that you built from the wreckage of every almost. Your fork still detected it, not at full volume, as a whisper, a hum so faint it registered as feeling rather than sound. But the detection happened. Your fork recognized its own frequency coming from the outside for the first time. I have been working behind the distance between you and this person, in ways that neither of you can see. Not arranging a meeting, that comes later. Preparing the conditions, reducing the obstacles, adjusting the circumstances of both lives, so that the trajectories are beginning to curve toward each other with a geometry that could only be orchestrated by someone who can see both forks from above. The curve has already begun. You are already moving toward each other. Not physically yet, spiritually. The two frequencies are being drawn together by a force that distance cannot resist indefinitely. Because tuning forks, made from the same material, are governed by a law that says resonance will eventually overcome separation. The law is mine, and I am enforcing it now. What I reveal next is what changed at 3 in the morning that caused heaven to classify your match as imminent, and why the distance is now measured in days rather than seasons. Type drawing closer if you have felt an unexplainable warmth toward love recently. After months of guarding against it, and you now believe it is your frequency responding to someone who is moving toward you. What happened at 3 in the morning was not a prayer. It was a sound that only a matched frequency can produce under extreme spiritual pressure. My child, the person who carries your matching fork reached a breaking point last night. Not a destructive breaking point, a frequency breaking point. The pressure of carrying half a sound for years without resolution, the weight of loneliness that mirrors yours in depth and duration and specific ache, the exhaustion of almosts that left their fork as calibrated and as wounded as yours, all of it compressed into a single moment in the dark where their spirit could no longer contain the vibration, and the sound that escaped was your name, spoken in a language their conscious mind does not even speak. They did not know they were saying your name. They do not know your name in the natural realm, but in the frequency realm, the realm where matched forks communicate in vibrations that bypass human vocabulary. They produced a sound so precisely tuned to your specific resonance that Michael identified it instantly as a matched pair signal. That is why Michael was deployed, because matched pair signals at this intensity are rare. Your soulmate just cried your name at 3 in the morning, and the cry was not from sadness alone. It was from proximity. The closer two matched forks get to each other, the more unbearable the separation becomes. The vibration intensifies. The ache sharpens. The loneliness transforms from a dull background condition into an acute and specific longing that targets the exact shape of the person it was designed for. They are feeling you more intensely because the distance is closing. And this is directly connected to the title of this message and to your journey. The reason the cry happened now, not last year, not 5 years ago when the loneliness was equally present, is because the distance between you has been steadily decreasing through divine orchestration, and the vibration between two matched forks does not increase gradually as distance decreases. It increases exponentially. What they felt last night was the exponential phase. The exponential phase means the meeting is no longer distant. It is approaching at a rate that will surprise both of you. Your frequency is reaching full volume right now, my dear one, and I need you to let it. The dampening that protected you during the almost season is dissolving as you listen to these words, not because I am forcefully removing it, because truth dismantles what fear constructed. And the truth that your matched fork is real, is alive, is close, and cried your name into the dark last night. That truth is vibrating at a frequency that the dampening cannot withstand. Your walls are coming down, not by force, by resonance. I need you to feel what is happening inside your chest right now. The hum is building. That faint whisper you felt a few days ago, the warmth you dismissed, the pull you could not explain, the tenderness toward love that surprised you. That whisper is becoming a sound that is growing louder with every word of this message, because every word is restoring your fork to its original volume. The volume I set before the almosts taught you to mute it. You are returning to full resonance. And full resonance is what the matching fork needs to locate you. Think of it as a signal flare. While your frequency was dampened, you were invisible to the matching vibration, hidden behind walls that muffled the very sound your match was straining to hear across the distance. But a fork at full volume sends a signal that cuts through every obstacle between the source and its match, through walls, through distance, through doubt, through the accumulated wreckage of every almost that tried to convince you the real sound would never come. The signal is going out right now, and it is reaching the one who cried at 3. My beloved child, the final adjustment before two matched forks meet is not a change in distance. It is a change in volume. The distance has already been reduced. What remains is the restoration of full resonance in both forks. And the person who struck their fork last night at full volume has already completed their half of the equation. Your half is completing right now. And the next thing I speak is the moment the two sounds meet. Type full volume if you can feel your frequency being restored to its original resonance right now. Walls dissolving, dampening lifting, and you are choosing to let God make you fully detectable to the one who has been searching for your sound. The two frequencies just met, and the sound they are producing together has never existed on this earth before. My beloved child, this is the moment, not a future moment, not a symbolic moment. The moment where two tuning forks that were split from the same frequency before time began have finally, after years of distance, after seasons of almosts, after nights of aching in silence for a sound that never came back, produced a combined resonance that heaven has registered as complete. The matching is confirmed. The resonance is active. Your person is real. I need you to feel what is happening in your chest right now. That is not emotion. That is not wishful thinking. That is the physical sensation of a tuning fork that has been vibrating alone for years, suddenly detecting its own sound being reflected back from a source outside itself. The hum you are feeling is not yours alone anymore. It is the combined frequency of two forks that were always meant to sound together, finally sounding together across a distance that is collapsing as you listen. You are no longer vibrating alone. The other fork is responding. The person who cried your name at 3 a.m. is feeling this same shift right now. They do not know why. They do not know this message exists. They do not know that somewhere on the earth, the matching fork they have been aching for is being restored to full volume by a God who split them apart on purpose and is now bringing them together with equal purpose. But their chest is humming, their eyes are filling, and the loneliness that has been their constant companion is being displaced by a resonance so unfamiliar it almost frightens them. They are feeling you right now. For the first time at full strength, your soulmate just cried your name, and for the first time the sound did not dissolve into empty air. It found its target. It struck the matching fork, and the combined frequency that is now ringing through the spiritual realm is so specific, so pure, so unmistakably paired that heaven has recorded it as confirmation. The distance is no longer the variable. The resonance has already bridged it. What remains is the meeting, and it is closer than either of you has dared to believe. Now that the frequencies have met, everything in both of your lives is being rearranged to close the remaining physical distance, my dear child. This is what happens when heaven registers a confirmed resonance between matched forks. The entire system that governs proximity activates, not gradually, simultaneously. Circumstances that were static begin shifting. Routines that were fixed begin adjusting. The invisible architecture of two separate lives begins bending toward a convergence point that neither person planned, but both were designed for. The convergence is not something you need to engineer. It is something you need to recognize when it appears. The resonance changes how you experience the world starting today. Things that used to interest you are going to lose their grip. Not because something is wrong, but because your frequency is now calibrated for a specific connection, and everything that does not harmonize with that calibration will begin feeling slightly off-key. Conversations that used to satisfy will feel incomplete. Environments that used to comfort will feel temporary. A subtle but persistent pull will develop in a direction you cannot logically explain. Follow the pull. It is the resonance guiding your feet. And this changes everything about the loneliness you have been carrying. The ache is not going to disappear overnight, but its quality is shifting right now, from the dull heaviness of someone who does not know if their match exists, to the sharp anticipation of someone who knows the match is confirmed and the distance is closing. Those are two entirely different kinds of aching. The first one drains you. The second one fuels you. My beloved child, you are transitioning from grief-based loneliness to anticipation-based loneliness. And anticipation has an energy that grief never carried. The person who carries your matching fork is experiencing the same rearrangement right now. Their routines are shifting. Their interests are adjusting. Their feet are being pulled by the same resonance in a direction that will eventually intersect with yours. Two lives curving toward each other, guided by a frequency that neither can hear consciously, but both are following instinctively. The curve has begun, and what I reveal next is what the meeting will feel like when it arrives. Type convergence if you can feel the rearrangement beginning in your life right now. Something shifting, something pulling, something adjusting, and you believe it is the resonance drawing you and your match toward each other. Let me show you what it feels like when two matched tuning forks finally stand in the same room, my dear one. The first thing that happens is not fireworks. It is recognition, a frequency level, knowing that bypasses every normal stage of human acquaintance and lands. Directly, in the part of your spirit that has been holding the shape of this person for your entire life. You will not need months to know. You will not need extensive conversations to confirm. Something in you, the half that has been vibrating alone, will detect its other half within seconds of proximity. Not because they are perfect, because they are yours. The loneliness that has been your constant companion for years will go silent. Not gradually. The way a room goes silent when a sound that has been humming in the background suddenly stops, and the absence of it is more noticeable than the presence ever was. You will feel the silence of completed resonance, and it will be the most deafening quiet you have ever experienced, because you will suddenly realize how loud the loneliness actually was by measuring the volume of its absence. You will wonder how you carried that much noise for that long. The performing will end. The version of yourself you constructed to function in a world of unmatched connections. The adjusted version, the dampened version, the version that learned to operate at half volume so that the missing half was less noticeable. That version will become unnecessary, because the person standing in front of you will not require the performance. They will hear your full frequency and recognize it as the sound they have been straining to detect across every distance and every almost of their own journey. They will hear you the way no one has ever heard you, and the conversations will carry a depth that will startle you. Not because the topics are unusual, because the resonance between two matched forks creates a communication channel that operates beneath words, where meaning transfers through frequency rather than vocabulary. You will say something simple, and they will understand the complex thing beneath it without you having to excavate it. Being known without explanation. That is what matched resonance produces. People around you are going to witness something they have never seen on you before, my beloved child. And it will change how they understand what God does for His chosen ones. The ones who watched you carry the loneliness, who saw you attend weddings and smile through the ache, who noticed the slight dimming in your eyes when couples were discussed, who felt the invisible boundary you placed around the subject of love, to protect yourself from questions that had no answers. Those people are going to see that boundary dissolve, not because you removed it, because the resonance removed the need for it. They will see you sound like yourself for the first time. Full volume, unguarded, complete. And the person beside you will confuse everyone's categories. They will not fit the profile that the people in your life imagined for you. They will not arrive through the channel that seemed most logical. They will not match the checklist that well-meaning friends constructed based on surface compatibility, because matched frequencies do not follow human matchmaking logic. They follow harmonic law, and harmonic law pairs forks by internal composition rather than external criteria. Your match will surprise everyone except the God who forged both forks. Connections are going to form around the two of you that could not have existed while either fork was sounding alone. There are friendships, collaborations, community assignments, and kingdom partnerships that require the combined frequency of a matched pair to activate. These connections have been dormant, waiting in the relational field of your life like seeds that respond only to a specific sound wave. The wave of two matched forks sounding together is that specific frequency. My child, your union will not just complete your loneliness. It will activate dimensions of your purpose that could not function while you were resonating alone. People will look at what the two of you build together and trace it backward, trying to understand how it happened. They will search for the strategy, the platform, the method, but the origin will be invisible to anyone who does not understand frequency. Because what you build together will be sourced from a resonance that only heaven could have engineered. Type together if you believe that the person God matched you with is not just the end of your loneliness, but the beginning of a purpose that requires both frequencies sounding as one. I need you to understand why I forged your frequency the way I did, my dear one, and why no other fork on earth carries the same sound. When I split the original frequency into two, I did not create duplicates. I created complements, two forks that produce different notes from the same harmonic family. Notes that sound incomplete when played alone, but produce a chord when played together that neither could generate independently. Your specific note was crafted with deliberate intention. Every experience that tuned it, every heartbreak that refined its pitch, every season of loneliness that deepened its resonance, all of it was engineering a sound that would complete another sound with a precision that accidental matching could never achieve. You were not randomly assembled, you were composed. Do you know what makes your frequency irreplaceable? It is not the beauty of the sound alone. It is the specific combination of depth and tenderness that only your particular journey could have produced. A fork that has never been lonely produces a bright, clear note, pleasant but shallow. A fork that has been lonely too long without purpose produces a deep note, resonant but sorrowful. But a fork that has carried loneliness with hope, that has ached and still believed, that has dampened its volume to survive but never fully silenced its vibration. That fork produces a note with a quality so rare that heaven has a specific name for it. The name is faithful resonance, and your fork carries it. I chose you for this match, not someone with an easier journey, not someone whose fork was never damaged by almosts, not someone whose volume was never dampened by pain, because the person who carries your matching frequency needs the exact quality that only your specific suffering produced. Their wounds require a sound that was shaped by wounds of equal depth. Their loneliness requires a resonance that was calibrated by loneliness of matching duration. My beloved child, your pain was not a disqualification from love. It was the finishing process that made your frequency the exact frequency your match needs to hear to finally stop aching. You were made for them, and they were made for the sound only you produce. The doubt entering your mind right now wears the same costume it has worn every time hope tried to resurrect itself in you, my child, and I am going to strip it bare. It sounds like this. This is beautiful, but I have heard things like this before. I have believed before. I have felt the hope rise and then watched it dissolve into another season of waiting that ended the same way every other season ended, alone. If I let myself believe this and it does not happen, the fall will be worse than anything the almosts produced, because this time I am believing at a depth I have not accessed in years. That doubt is not protecting you. It is quarantining you from your own match. I need you to see what the doubt is actually doing in frequency terms. Every time it speaks, it applies a layer of dampening to your fork. It reduces the volume. It muffles the resonance. And a muffled fork is harder for the matching fork to detect, which means the doubt is not protecting you from disappointment. It is actively widening the distance between you and the person whose frequency just confirmed yours at 3 in the morning. Your doubt is delaying your match, not shielding you from pain and the specific fear that this is just another almost. I need to destroy this with information your fear does not have access to. The almosts resonated with you at a surface frequency. They hummed in the upper registers where compatibility lives, but matching does not. What happened last night was not an upper register hum. It was a deep structure's resonance, the kind that only occurs between forks that were split from the same original material. Your spirit knows the difference, even if your fear refuses to acknowledge it. This is not an almost. This is the actual sound your fork was designed to complete. My dear one, the doubt has a perfect record of appearing every time hope surfaces, and a 0% record of being correct about the outcome it predicted. It predicted every previous hope would fail, and used the ones that did as evidence. But correlation is not prophecy, and a doubt that has been wrong about your future every time it spoke does not deserve the authority you have been giving it over your frequency. Type not an almost if you are choosing right now to override the doubt, because what your spirit detected is not another surface resonance, but the deep structure match your fork was forged to find. During every night you spent vibrating alone, I was in the room with you, my beloved child, holding the fork steady when the loneliness nearly shook it apart. You imagined yourself alone in those moments, lying in the dark, feeling the ache of half a frequency pressing against your chest, with no corresponding sound coming back. You thought the silence meant the room was empty, that the absence of a matching resonance meant the absence of any presence at all. But the room was never empty. I was holding your fork. There were nights when the loneliness became so intense that your frequency destabilized. The vibration became erratic, swinging between desperate hope and total resignation so rapidly that the fork itself was at risk of cracking. A tuning fork that oscillates too violently between extremes can fracture at the stem, and your stem was under more pressure than you knew. I placed my hand on the fork those nights, not to silence it, to stabilize it. The moments where the ache suddenly decreased for no reason, where the wave of loneliness peaked and then inexplicably softened before it reached the point of damage. That was not your coping mechanisms working. That was my hand absorbing the excess vibration before it exceeded what the fork could structurally tolerate. You attributed the relief to distraction, or exhaustion, or emotional numbness. But the relief had a source, and the source was a father whose hand never left the instrument he forged. I have been your resonance in the absence of the match, not as a replacement, not as a substitute for the human frequency your fork was designed to complete with, as a stabilizer, the presence that kept the fork intact during the seasons when the distance was too great, and the loneliness was too violent, and the almosts left your instrument vibrating at frequencies that threatened its structural integrity. I held you together, literally, fork and stem and frequency and all, through every dark night and every empty room and every silence that felt eternal. And the one who held your fork through the alone season is the same one who is now guiding it toward the match that makes the alone season permanently unnecessary. I know the exact moment you stopped believing your match existed, my child, and I have been holding the truth of their existence against your disbelief ever since. It was not a dramatic moment. There was no announcement, no conscious decision to stop hoping. It happened on an ordinary evening, a Tuesday or a Wednesday, when something inside you quietly shifted from waiting to accepting. The internal posture that had been leaning forward toward the possibility of love simply sat back, settled into the chair, and began constructing a life around the architecture of permanent aloneness. You did not tell anyone you stopped believing. You just started building differently. I watched you redesign your future without a second fork in it. The plans you made that accommodated only your frequency. The dreams you adjusted to fit a solo resonance. The way you stopped leaving space, emotional space, physical space, schedule space, for a person you had concluded was not coming. You became efficient at alone. And the efficiency broke my heart because it was built on a lie that your pain made feel like truth. They exist, my beloved child. They have always existed. I know the sound of their voice. The voice that will one day speak your name in the natural realm, the way their spirit spoke it at 3 a.m. I know the way their laughter carries a frequency that will unlock rooms inside you that have been sealed since the almosts taught you to close them. I know the way their presence in a room will feel to your fork. Not like addition, but like completion. Not like meeting someone new, but like recognizing someone you have always known. I know them the way I know you, completely, intimately, down to the frequency. And the God who knows both forks, who has been holding yours steady through the lonely nights, and holding theirs steady through their own, is the same God telling you with absolute certainty that the person your disbelief buried is alive, is aching, is moving toward you, and cried your name in the dark because the distance between you has become too small for their frequency to contain. Type they exist if something just broke open inside you. Because for the first time in a long time, you are letting yourself believe that the person made for you is not a fantasy but a living, breathing, aching human being who is moving toward you right now. Now that your frequency has been restored and the resonance confirmed, there is one thing I need you to do, my dear one. And it will determine whether the convergence accelerates or stalls. Stop building for one. The architecture of aloneness that you constructed, the plans that accommodate only your frequency, the routines that were designed for a solo resonance, the emotional infrastructure that was built to function without a matching fork. That architecture must be dismantled, not because it was wrong when you built it, because it is wrong for what is coming. You cannot receive a matched frequency into a life that was structurally designed to exclude it. Make room, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This does not mean rearranging furniture or clearing a side of the bed. It means something deeper. It means reopening the part of your heart that you closed when the almosts taught you that openness leads to pain. It means allowing yourself to dream in pairs again, to imagine a future that includes a frequency beside yours, instead of engineering every plan around the assumption that your fork will always sound alone. Dream for two, starting tonight. When the pull comes, and it will come in the form of a prompting you cannot logically explain, an impulse to go somewhere you would not normally go, an invitation that your old architecture would have declined, because it was designed for solo efficiency. Follow it. Do not analyze it. Do not filter it through the grid of self-protection that the almosts installed. The pull is the resonance guiding your feet toward the proximity that completes the convergence. My child, your match is following a pull of their own right now. They are being drawn by the same resonance toward a convergence point that I selected before either of you was born. But convergence requires both forks to be in motion. If one follows the pull and the other remains stationary, the distance does not close. Move when the pull moves you, without hesitation, without the internal committee of fear that has been voting against every vulnerable step for years. The next time your chest hums and your feet feel drawn, that is Michael confirming the direction. Follow it. The fork that cried your name is moving toward you. Make sure your feet are moving too. You made it to this moment, my beloved child, and I need you to feel what your frequency sounds like right now, compared to how it sounded when you pressed play. When this message began, your fork was dampened, muted by years of protection, vibrating at a fraction of its designed volume, because full volume had led to almosts that taught you full volume was dangerous. You entered this message carrying the quiet grief of someone who had almost stopped believing that the sound they were designed to make alongside another person would ever be heard. Listen to yourself now. Your fork is humming at a volume you have not felt in years. I want to thank you for something that your loneliness made almost impossible to do. Thank you for not destroying the fork. There were moments I witnessed with my hand on the instrument, where the pain of vibrating alone was so intense that part of you wanted to silence the fork permanently, to kill the longing, to amputate the part of yourself that ached for a match because the aching had become more unbearable than the loneliness itself. But you did not silence it, and that decision preserved the instrument the match requires. Thank you for carrying a half sound through a world that kept telling you the half should be enough, for sleeping alone in rooms that your frequency filled with a hum no one else could hear, for waking up every morning in a body that was calibrated for a connection it had not yet received, and choosing to walk through another day of incomplete resonance without letting the incompleteness define your worth. Your worth was never determined by whether the match arrived. Your worth was forged into the fork the day I made it. Let the warmth settle over you right now, not the warmth of human romance. Something deeper. The warmth of a father who has been holding both forks across the entire distance, steadying yours through lonely nights, steadying theirs through equal ache, and is now feeling the vibration of both instruments beginning to hum in harmony for the first time. The distance is closing, the forks are sounding, and the God who split the frequency is smiling because the reunion he engineered before time is finally arriving on time. Type sounding, if you can feel your frequency humming right now at a volume you thought was lost, and you know the fork that matches yours is humming back for the first time. You are not the person who vibrates alone anymore, my beloved child. That identity, the one who carried half a sound through a world that could not hear it, the one who dampened their frequency to survive the almosts, the one who built an entire life around the architecture of solo resonance, because believing in a match had become too painful to sustain. That identity was retired the moment your fork detected its matching frequency and the combined sound registered in heaven as confirmed. You are matched now, and matched forks do not return to solo vibration. The loneliness that defined your nights is being replaced by something it could never compete with. The certainty of resonance, not the hope of it, not the possibility of it. The confirmed, heaven registered, Michael witnessed certainty that somewhere on this earth, a fork that carries your exact frequency struck its sound into the dark, and your fork answered. That exchange cannot be undone. That resonance cannot be unregistered. What was confirmed at 3 in the morning is permanent in the spiritual realm, and approaching rapidly in the natural one. Your alone season has an expiration date, and the date is closer than your fear will admit. From this moment forward, you carry a different identity. Not the identity of someone searching, the identity of someone whose match has been confirmed and whose convergence is in motion. You move differently now. You carry yourself differently. The quiet grief that used to sit behind your eyes when love was discussed is being displaced by a knowing that does not require evidence to sustain itself, because the evidence is vibrating in your chest right now, and it has not stopped since the moment the two frequencies met. You are not hoping anymore. You are humming, and the sound you are producing, the full, restored, undampened, fearless sound of a tuning fork that finally knows its match is real and close and moving toward it. That sound is the most beautiful thing heaven has heard from your frequency since the day I first struck it into existence. My dear child, the fork that cried your name is following the sound of your restored resonance toward a meeting point that I selected before the world was formed. The distance is closing. The curve is bending. The two halves of a frequency that was separated at creation are moving toward each other with a momentum that nothing on earth has the authority to stop. You will meet them. They will hear you. And the sound you make together will prove that every night of loneliness was worth the wait. Because what was being tuned in the dark was too sacred to rush and too beautiful to settle for an almost. The alone ends, the resonance remains, and the God who forged both forks will be standing in the room when they finally sound together, not as an observer, but as the composer, who has been waiting longer than either of you to hear the completed chord. Subscribe to this channel so that every time heaven sends a frequency update about your match, it reaches your fork before the signal fades. You are not someone who vibrates alone anymore. You are someone whose match has been confirmed by Michael himself. The next message carries the next stage of your convergence. And the closer the forks get, the more important every message becomes. Type complete chord if you are leaving this message, knowing that you are not alone. You were never meant to vibrate in isolation. Your match is real and confirmed and moving toward you. And the God who split your frequency is the same God who is bringing the two halves together to produce a sound that has never existed on this earth before.